Hey there, homeschool reading community. Welcome to this Facebook Live post all about readers. Today, we're going to be talking about those books that we use when we're teaching our kids to read, and I'm going to be sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly of all different kinds of readers that are out there. I'm going to be sharing which ones work and which ones don't. I might be stepping on a few toes. I hope not, but it could happen. And I'm just really excited to be here with you today and talk about this because there are so many different options out there. And so I want to kind of cut through the noise and just share some of my favorites, some of the ones that really work well, and really what I look for when I am trying to choose a reader for my kids. Because I spent time as a teacher before I became a homeschool parent, and as I've been learning more and more about the process of teaching kids to read, there are definitely some readers that work better than others. And so I'm really excited to talk about this topic today and just share this with you. So, the biggest thing that I think is really important to look for when you are choosing a reader for your child is that you want something that's going to be decodable for them. So, I want to break down what I mean by that. So, decodable means that when your child sees a word in this book, every single word in the entire book is one they can either sound out or one they already know, one they've already memorized and made instantaneous, and it's a sight word for them. We just got done talking about this over in the Reading Better Together group, and we were talking a lot about sight words today. And I think it's really important to know about sight words as you're teaching your child to read because it's important to start with blending and with phonics first before introducing sight words. And the reason for that is that we really want to teach our kids that the process of learning to read and the process of reading a new word is a process of sounding out the word and blending those sounds together. It's not a process of looking at the first letter or looking at the picture and guessing. And this can be really tricky because when our kids are just starting out, though that guessing can be easier than the sounding out, especially with the kinds of books that kids are often reading when they're first starting out. A lot of times the books are designed to make it easy for kids to be able to guess. And this gives them a quick win, I guess, when they're learning to read because they can read the book really quickly. But the problem is they're not actually reading it, they're just guessing. And so those strategies of guessing are going to work really great when they're reading those beginning books that are designed for guessing. But they're not going to work so great when your child is 2 or 3 years into it and they're trying to read the science textbook, for example, or they're trying to read another book that they're just interested in that isn't written for a beginning reader. And so it's really important that we're teaching our kids those strategies of how to sound out a word that they don't know. And the way that we do that is by teaching them phonics and by teaching them blending. And even though it's a little bit harder at first, it's really important that our kids get those skills. And because that process of sounding out and blending is a little bit harder at first than just looking at the picture and guessing, it's important that we start with the blending first. Because so often, if kids start with the guessing first, that's all they ever want to do is guess. And it can be really hard once our kids have learned that guessing is an acceptable strategy. It can be really hard to get them to want to sound out a word when they think they can just guess a few times and maybe get it right instead. It can lead to a lot of frustration for kids and a lot of frustration also for us as their teacher. And so when we are going through this process of teaching our kids to read, we want to start with books that are decodable, books that only include words that they can sound out because we don't want them to be doing any guessing at all. And once they become strong decoders and they get really good at this process of blending the sounds to make words, and we've been working on that with them for a month or 2 months or 3 months, and we feel like they're really, really, really strong at it, then we can start to introduce sight words. And even the way that I would suggest that we do that is to focus on decoding the word as much as we can and memorizing as little as possible because really we just don't want our kids to be guessing. And so I want to share some readers that encourage guessing and some readers that discourage guessing because really that's the goal is we want our kids to be sounding out words and not guessing. So the first kind of reader that I want to share, and I actually brought examples because I want you to be able to look at these, is this one. This is Guided Science Readers. This particular one is called The Kitten. And these, you might see them as like guided reader or leveled reader. There's a few different names for them, but what you're really looking for is the text in the inside. This is like a dead clue. And here's the book. So on the first page, we have the kitten is in the grass. The kitten is in the flowers. And then if you turn the page, there's a pattern. The kitten is in the basket. The kitten is in the box. And it continues. So on every single page, the kitten is in. And then there's a really cute, colorful photograph that shows where the kitten is, right? So this is a great book for encouraging guessing because kids can memorize this little beginning pattern the kitten is in once they've seen the book one or two times, and then they can just look at the picture and it's pretty obvious to guess. If you know the pattern is the kitten is in and you're looking at this picture, you're going to guess box, right? Even if you have no idea what that word is, you probably don't even have to look at the text to know what it's going to say on this page, right? So this is a great book for if we wanted our kids to be more confident, I guess. It's got some really cute pictures, but it's really not going to teach our kids any strategies to help them be able to sound out words that they don't know. And these kinds of books, unfortunately, are out there. There's a lot of them. But again, just not something that's going to help our kids learn how to read. So anytime that it has super predictable text like this and then pictures where the kids can pretty much guess what the words on the page are going to say because they're looking at the pictures, I would recommend steering clear of that as a reader for your child. Again, there are other reasons to use these books, but not as a reader. Don't use that as a reader. Okay. Another kind of book that is super popular is these ones. You probably have seen these. These are like the step 1, 2, 3 readers, and there are lots of them. This particular one is, I think, my daughter's favorite book on planet Earth right now, and this is Disney, What is a Princess? And she is all about the Disney princesses, and so she absolutely loves this book. And I am happy to read this book out loud to her anytime she wants to. And she actually has memorized the text of the book and will read it to me. And it's great for that. However, again, I would not recommend using this as a reader. And here's why. On the back, it says, if you look right here under step 1, it gives a really big clue why this isn't going to be a good reader. Hopefully you can see that. If you can't read that, it says, ready to read, preschool, kindergarten. Does your child know the alphabet? Is your child eager to begin reading? Step 1 is the perfect first step. Big type and easy words, rhyme and rhythm, picture clues. So picture clues is the problem because we don't want our kids looking at the pictures and guessing what the words are going to be. And if you look at this book, really honestly, there are not a lot of, it says it's level 1. It's like for beginning readers. And I do like the fact that there is not a lot of text on the page. But if you look at these are not the kind of words that kids are going to be decoding when they're in preschool, right? This particular page says Cinderella wears a gown and glass slippers. So we have the word Cinderella, which probably your average preschooler is not going to know. Wears, again, probably not. There's like the E-A vowel combination right there. The word A, they might get. Gown, maybe. Probably not, though, because the ow, the O-W in the middle is kind of weird. And maybe if they've memorized it, glass slippers, probably not. So this is, again, a really great book to read with your kids, to read to your kids, and maybe even if they've memorized it for them to pretend to read. That's a really great way to encourage them to get excited about reading. But this is not a good book to use for teaching our kids to read. A lot of these can be really complicated too. I just grabbed, we have a whole bunch of them because we read them to our kids. But I just grabbed another one. This one is Harry and the Lady Next Door. We absolutely love Harry. The original is Harry the Dirty Dog. If you haven't seen that one, that is a really cute picture book. And this is, again, level 1. It says simple sentences for eager new readers. Yeah, so there's that much text. And a lot of the words are short, but again, not really what we're looking for new readers. So when we are choosing a reader, we want to avoid any kind of ones like this where the goal of it is that our kids will look at the picture and be able to guess what the text says. And those kinds of books, the really super repetitive ones, are great for looking at the pictures, maybe talking about science or whatever the topic is that the book is about, but they're not great for teaching our kids to sound out words. And again, that's what we want to be doing when we are teaching them to read. We want to be teaching them to sound out the words and not to be looking at the pictures and guessing. So, what I would recommend that you look for is a decodable reader. A decodable reader. So, decodable just means that they can decode, they can sound out every single word in the reader. And a lot of times these will come, like the very beginning ones might come in a set. So I have an example. This particular one is a box set. It's called Fun Tales. And I just grabbed a random one out of the middle. This one is called Pop. And if you look at this one, the text in this one is very different than the text in Harry the Dirty Dog. So there is very little text. And if you look at the sentences, they include only super short words that kids would probably know and be able to sound out. It says, on this particular page, it says, the pop is hot. So if our kids know the word is, and maybe they've seen the word the before, they're going to definitely be sounding out pop and hot. This book is working on the short O sound. And another clue that you can find is that in the front of this book, it lists the letters that are included that our kids would have to know the sounds for. And often these decodable books will do that. They will sort of be arranged sequentially, and they might even they'll either come with a curriculum, or they might list the letters that you're going to be looking for. So this particular one has letters F, B, M, T, R, A, H, P, I, P, S, I, C, D, J, O. So this is number 9 in the series. So by this point, they assume that kids have learned a few of these letters and their sounds. And then if your child knows all of those letter sounds, then every single word in this book is going to be decodable to them. They'll be able to sound it out. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a book that includes only decodable words and doesn't have anything that your child won't know and they'll have to guess. But there is a problem with these as well, and that is the plot. This particular one, Todd is a rhinoceros in this book, and he's drinking warm pop. So sometimes it can be tricky to write these books because you can only include words that kids already know. So it has to be super short. It has to only include certain letters. And so it can be difficult to create words that actually are a lot of fun for kids and that that tell a good story and that are interesting. And if you've spent any kind of time reading these with your kids, then you'll know a lot of times the plot is lacking. And so it can be challenging to find ones that actually are exciting for kids. And it can be really challenging to work on reading comprehension with these because sometimes they just don't make any sense because they had to include only those certain letters, and that can make it really tricky. So the last kind of book that I want to share is called a side-by-side reader. And these are my absolute favorite when teaching kids how to read, and they're also super hard to find. I love these books because they're designed for a parent and a child to read together. And this was what we found when I was teaching my oldest to read that actually was what saved us because he was doing okay with the lessons that we were using at the time. They were working for him, he was learning, but he was getting so frustrated because he just couldn't see the connection between what we were doing during those reading lessons and him actually being able to read the books that he loved. And so I realized that he needed to be reading actual books with an actual cover and pages so that he would be able to see what we were working towards. But the problem was he was not ready for those more complicated books that were out there, and the readers were too boring for him. And so we ended up finding a couple of side-by-side readers at our library. And unfortunately, they're out of print now, but those books were great because they had a parent page that told most of the story and then a child page that had just a few words that were completely decodable, and we could read it together as a team and we could get the story that way. And they were great because they gave him the chance to practice. They also gave him the reward of having me read alongside of him. So every time he finished a page, then I would read a page to him. Yeah. Tasha says, yes, love the side-by-side are awesome, but very hard to find. Yeah, true story. I have looked, Tasha. They are so great, and I just can't fathom why more publishers don't make them. Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. So I have one that is super old. I think I found this at like a yard sale or something. And this particular one is like a phonics read aloud one. It's called Jen the Hen. And in this particular book, they have kind of the same deal. So we have the parent page over here. Have you heard of Jen the Hen? And then the kid reads hen. And then it's the page doesn't go all the way to the edge, so the N keeps going. And then the parent reads, one day she went to her den, and then we have den. So this is teaching the N sound at the end of the word. And these are cool just because the parent page, again, is more complicated, and then the child page is much simpler. So yeah, I wish there were more of these out there. There really aren't, but when I was making the Reading Better Together curriculum, that was what I really wanted to do, was to write books that had the parent page and the child page. And so I wanted to show you one from inside the Reading Better Together curriculum so that you could see what they look like. This is the very first one. It's called Happy Birthday Bear. And if you would like to get this and print it out and try it with your kids, there is a link in the description of the video to where you can grab this for free to print it and try it. It's inside the Reading Better Together starter kit, and you can click that link in the description of the video and grab this actual book and read it with your kids. So the way this book works is that it's got the same kind of pages as that one. So there are parent pages on this side with a lot more text, and then child pages over here that are very simple. And this particular one is the first book out of the set of 30 that you get with Reading Better Together, so it's very simple. Some of the child pages are just a letter sound or the very first words that kids are blending together in the curriculum. And I love these because they are way more plot and way more story than your average decodable book, because we can include words like giraffe asks, are you excited that it's your birthday? We could never put that in a decodable book, but in these books we can, because the parents are reading those pages, and so the parents are helping the plot to continue on, and then the kids are able to read their part as well. So, and it's just really fun to be able to read these together with your kid and have them have that fun experience with you. I know that so many of us get so frustrated with the process of teaching our kids to read because it kind of turns into an us versus them battle. And so one of my biggest goals with these books was to make it back into a fun experience that you can have with your kids. So hopefully you can grab this book from the link in the description of the video and try it out and see what you think. And see how it works for your child as well. So I'm not seeing any questions in the comments of the video yet. If you have a question about readers, about which ones to look for or which ones to avoid, or how to choose a reader for your child, feel free to drop that in the comments. I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will be back here next Wednesday in the group. I do these lives every week at 3 o'clock Eastern on Wednesdays. So if you have a topic that you would like to see me talk about, please feel free to let me know. You can drop those in the comments, or you can email me at sarah@homeschoolingforhim.com. And I would love to talk about a topic that you're interested in as well. So have a wonderful week. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye. I hope you enjoyed this video, which was recorded live in the Homeschool Reading Community Group. This is a free Facebook group where I share tips and advice about homeschooling and teaching reading. You'll also find community with other homeschool moms like you, plus freebies, giveaways, parties, and more. I would love for you to join us over at the Homeschool Reading Community. Make sure that you check out the link in the description of this video for all the details.